It's great to have you here today for the art of developing powerful challenges. We'll talk about topics, participation, and execution. Before we go ahead and get started and talk with our great panelists, let me do a little bit of housekeeping. So we do have folks standing by on social. Our hashtag is innovation, #leadership, and we're at Brightidea. We'd love to hear from you. You're welcome to submit any questions through social, or you can submit questions over at the Q&A panel here, and we will definitely take questions at the end. We'll allow about 15 minutes towards the end for questions. And note that you can also vote on which questions you want to make sure we ask, so we encourage you to go ahead and do that. There's also a couple polls that we'd love to hear from you. You could take time to do that. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our panelists for this is actually our second hangout on challenges. We did have one, which you see on our website, www.brightidea.com, about outcomes, challenge outcomes. And today, again, we're talking about developing powerful challenges. And with us, we have Laurent Benichou, Director of Innovation and Foresight at AXA. Laurent works for AXA's holding company and runs contests for multiple AXA entities around the world. They have to sell the ideas to other entities in AXA around the world, and they have to sell them to the countries that have the local teams so that they can do the implementation. So Laurent has excellent experience to share with us today. And then we're also changing it up a little bit. We have George, now of course I'm going to try really hard to pronounce this perfectly, is Kyriakopoulos. And George is actually an innovation consultant at Brightidea. And this is one time that we're now having a Brightidea person really chat with us, because he has a lot of experience with a lot of our customers developing challenges. So he'll share with us a little bit in terms of what he's experienced. And then also we will continue to have some further challenge topics in our Innovation Insights series, because they're definitely very popular. And we'll continue to get deeper content as we move forward, so you can share in hearing some of the expertise that we have learned and developed over the years with our customers developing challenges. And George is really a member of our Brightidea consulting team. He supports cross-industry clients around the world in setting up and running the innovation programs. One of his favorite things is supporting his clients developing and running great challenges, and he's got a lot of proof to talk about here today, so we definitely look forward to it. And I'm Gretchen Hoffman, Vice President of Marketing at Brightidea. And Brightidea offers innovation management software and services expertise to help ensure your innovation programs run effectively. So please do check out our website. You'll see the new apps and command center we just announced last month, which we're getting great feedback on. It makes it a whole lot easier to get up and running with challenges, hackathons, and more, and to track really and manage all your activities in one place. I mentioned on the last hangout that I actually did a web storm myself, and with the new apps, it took less than 30 minutes. It was amazing. So I'm a testimonial, and yes, I work at Brightidea, but still I'm a testimonial that this is very much something worth checking into. And with that, what we typically do is we have each of our panelists share a Google fact, something that you can't really Google about the person, so I should say a non-Google fact about them, so you can get to know them a little bit before we jump into our questions. So, Laurent, what secret do you have for us today?
My little fact would be that I'm getting married in 2 weeks. I'm doing the full Monty, city hall, synagogue, party, everything.
Wow, congratulations. Thanks for taking time here before you take off. So, and George.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations, Laurent, you know.
Thank you.
And the very best of your I'm not sure if you've had your bachelor party yet, but you know,
yes.
If not, okay. Secret, quote-unquote, secret fact. Part of the reason I'm here today at Brightidea in general, actually, is during my MBA days, I was pushing, let's say, the startup world. I was trying to get into the startup world, and I had come up with an idea that, in retrospect, was almost identical to Brightidea. That's how I found Brightidea. So, you know, I'm glad they were already here, and now I am also here. So, tidbit of information, ideas. You know, we share some ideas, or there are shared ideas.
Hey, you could have made up our name, right?
I had a slightly different name. I won't mention it, but you know, maybe.
Well, welcome, George, and welcome, Laurent. Appreciate you both being here to share insights. So to go ahead and get started, let's go ahead and ask Laurent one of our first questions, which is, what makes a good, great, and not so great challenge? And can you give us some criteria that might be helpful for people to hear?
I would say a great challenge, at least in my company, needs to speak to everybody. I like to, and I've done only challenges that are company-wide. So when I launch a challenge, it's for 140,000 employees to answer or to participate. And when you have that in mind, you need to know that everybody should be able to contribute. So a great challenge can be simply phrased. Everything in the challenge description should be understandable by anybody in the street so that they could contribute. And also the forms, they should be carefully addressed. The forms that the ID submitters will fill in, they should not be too narrow, because you want the contributors or the ID submitters to submit an ID that is thought about and rather complete, but you don't want it too long either, because you don't want the ID submitter to be deterred by the length of the formula they have to fill in. So you need to really find the right balance and to find very easy words so that everybody participate. Another thing that I would add is that what I like at AXA is that we have multiple gates of selection. So, and this allows people to go deeper into into a selected ID as they are progressing along the stage gate process. So a stage gate process allows ID submitters to grow their ID progressively. I think this is something that people should replicate.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Definitely, Laurent, on that point. In regards to the way you were explaining, in terms of how the ideas are coming in and how you try to balance between not making it too narrow, not making it too broad. The idea, the submission itself, you know, there's something to be said. Oftentimes, when I'm working with clients, especially new clients, they're thinking, you know, is, well, we want to keep it open so that anybody can submit an idea, and we don't want to put too much limitation. But it's very easy to forget that, you know, when you put these limitations, it's sort of a way of instilling creativity. That, you know, when you're thinking, you know, I can have this great idea, but if I make it a little bit difficult, if I make it a little bit more complex, add a little bit more, you know, requirement on the side of the person, they have to think differently. They have to be creative in how they structure their idea, and it puts that little extra effort, which, you know, it might compound and add up to some very interesting results, right?
And when we communicate on a challenge, some people really think about their ideas, and what sometimes happens is that they provide ideas when the blank field is not with a maximum limit of character. Mm-hmm. They provide a full book explaining their idea, and we need to think about potentially moderators, evaluators, and so on that will have to read the ID. So that's also needs to be taken into account.
Can never forget the evaluation. We need to be efficient. This can't be a never-ending cycle of read a book, read multiple books. That you need some standards to make this actually work at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Great points. And Laurent, while we're talking on challenges, can you talk about the first challenge that you've executed, and how did it go?
So it was pretty hectic because my management wanted to set up this ID crowdsourcing contest in a hurry, or very rapidly, I would say. And so we had to do lots of preparation in a hurry. In the end, it went well, but in the following years, we made sure that we dedicate sufficient amount of time for preparation. This is very essential to really prepare 2 to 3 months before, because you have lots of things to do, talk to communication teams, IT, and so on. I think in the end it ended well because we had a decent amount of IDs, and we had um, a, a list of IDs that went up as the contest progressed. So in the first days we were very afraid because we had just a few IDs, but in the end people started. I mean, after 1 week or two, people contributed more and more and more, and we had a good number of IDs in the end. So quantitatively, it was great. And I have to say also qualitatively it was great because we had some ideas that the teams, the specific teams that were, by the way, the topics were mobile, and the second topic was big data. And the teams that were talking on big data got interesting ideas that they hadn't thought about, that they could work on after the contest, which is precisely the objective. So year one was a success, and year two was a year of stabilization of the process and increase in the numbers. But more or less in year one, everything was pretty much set up.
Ron, a question to you. So you mentioned that in the beginning there was a little bit of a slow pickup in terms of
Yes.
People getting engaged. What did you do at that point? Did you specifically target certain communications, or was it more organic? People were busy or something. This is quite common, especially starting a challenge, and maybe it's the first challenge. People are a little bit, standoffish, a little bit shy, sort of. What did you do in your circumstance?
So yeah, I had that. People want to take the time to think because they know that the deadline is in 5 weeks, so they take the time to think before they submit their IDs, or they procrastinate or whatever. So what we did, first of all, I think it's fundamental to activate the voting part and to really recognize voting in the process, because if you recognize voting, then people say, okay, I'm going to submit an ID, then I'm going to send an email to 10 or 15 of my friends within the company so that they vote for me.
Word of mouth.
And the guy that received the mail, some people don't bother going to the platform. Some vote for their friend politely, even though they might not like the ID. But it keeps the ball rolling. Because there are votes, people who receive the ID and the requirement for votes of the first person, then they said to themselves, oh, maybe I can post an ID myself. And you have a kind of snowball effect with the voting, that everybody wants to submit an ID, then ask their own friends to vote for them, and so on and so on. So I think this works. And another thing that worked is that at AXA, the contest is international. So you have people from AXA Spain, AXA US, AXA Japan, AXA France, and so on voting. So what I did is I provided a note to my sponsor, the CEO of AXA Group, and each Monday she had the stats by region. And therefore, the CEOs of AXA, let's say AXA Switzerland, if he's lagging behind, he's got the message that they are lagging behind. So he tells to his team, oh, come on, guys, we're lagging behind. We need to participate a little bit more. And the one
competition.
Yeah, exactly. It's internal competition. And the one that is number one wants to keep number one position. So live stats during the contest is really important to keep the ball rolling.
No, definitely within a challenge that size, taking into account many different variations of challenges, how you would structure them, target audience, population, size, scope, expected result, etc. Within a challenge that size, I think it's very interesting that you can create that kind of internal competition. Create that kind of cross business unit. Who's going to engage, who's going to have the best ideas per business unit. What I'd want to ask in terms of what you think. In regards to votes, how strong do you think the votes are as a signifier? Because oftentimes I'll be speaking with a client, and the notion of votes, it comes into play that we want the people to choose which is the best idea. But you know, from my side, I sometimes have a slightly different perspective in regards to that first line, the voting. What do you think about the votes as the signifier of the good ideas or the appropriate ideas?
It's biased because, as I told you, people ask other people to vote for them, even though they might have lame ideas. Now, that said, when an idea is totally disruptive and totally great, it might not be in the first ones, but it can reach a position that qualifies the idea for the next round sometimes. But I have to say sometimes people have a high number of votes, but for an idea that is so-so, and that's why I want to use evaluation a little bit more this year. Last year, I qualified half of my people for the next stage through voting and half through evaluation. But you have some ideas that are not so great through voting, so therefore I will assign a higher weight for evaluation this year. Like 2/3 of ideas will come from evaluation, and 1/3 only from voting. And sometimes the ones that are most voted are also the ones that are most evaluated. So in the 1/3 of ideas that comes from voting, in reality, I will have only 1/6 or something like that of ideas that are really lame and that I will get rid of in the next round. Yeah, I mean in the next stage of selection.
Interesting. So, Laurent, you've talked a little bit in terms of the different groups around the countries that have participated in the challenges. Is there anything more you can tell us on who typically participates in terms of departments and roles?
So the whole purpose of my competition is to make it company-wide, and so I want everybody to take ownership and to feel that they can contribute. Now that said, depending on the topic, it might lead some families or professional families to participate a little bit more. For example, when we had a challenge about mobile, the digital teams participated a little bit more. This year I will have a challenge regarding the life and savings business line. I expect people from this business line to contribute a little bit more, but this is something that I want to fight against, because those people from the current line of business, they already share ideas. They've already shared ideas for years. This is their job. This is what they do every day. So what I want is people from other teams to be able to bring in something new to the life and, in this example, to the life and savings professional family. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes a very disruptive idea will actually not come from the core team that is supposed to be the expert.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I totally. I mean, what we're talking about here is the notion of like the collaboration, and that the idea is, we have this hallmark example of the BP oil spill, and within the oil spill, BP has 1,000 engineers, educated with PhDs, and they had all the knowledge necessary. But at the end of the day, this huge problem, the solution for that came from a plumber who didn't have the PhDs and didn't have the pieces of paper and wasn't paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, but just a regular guy who knew exactly what to do. And I have a very short story I'd like to share. In those regards, I was speaking to a couple of clients on a call not too long ago, and they had shared the story that within I'm not going to say who, but within their organization, they were running multiple challenges, and a specific individual within their company, within their business, that person was sort of known as being not too interesting a person, a bit of a boring person. When people had to work with this person, it'd be, oh, now I have to work with him again. This is going to be a long day. But as they started running challenges, what kept happening was this person would have fantastic ideas. This person who, like, the organization thought of, or people within the organization thought of as not too exciting, not too innovative. This person kept coming up with fantastic ideas and kept, at the end of challenges, their ideas were almost always selected repeatedly. And this person, they went and asked him, why, what happened? How are you finding all these ideas? And they were just kind of bored with their day-to-day. And when you gave them an opportunity, when you provided them a problem that was interesting, that they had an opportunity to get creative, that's where they started shining. And this is hallmark of what we do, right?
And these people, they won't try to hunt for votes. They will just provide an idea, thinking, "Oh, I think it might be useful," and sometimes it's so useful that they don't even imagine how disruptive it is. So that's how, with evaluation, you can fish identify this kind of fish.
Which again, it ties into the importance of, the system is not going to define which is the best idea. There's no automatic click, that's it. There has to be humans that you trust behind this, and that are going to look, regardless of how many votes, they're going to look through them and find the diamonds in the rough. Your subject matter expert, the people that you trust, you need to find out who those people are, give them the appropriate time, make sure that they have the time, and make sure that they're focused on digging through and finding the right stuff.
Yeah, it was interesting. Laurent had talked about the contests and all, but I don't know, George, have you seen any other ways that customers have encouraged participation?
I mean, really, it's very, very important in regards to the topic itself. That when you structure these topics, you want to make it relatable, interesting. You don't, like, as a simple example, how many years, not so much today, but there was economic issues globally, and part of the basics any corporation is going to do is start cutting costs. And running a challenge on cutting costs at that time is not the wisest thing to do, right? You want to do something that's exciting but controlled. That you find your right sponsor who's got this issue that has been gnawing away at them all the time. And if it's such a significant issue, if it's creating such an impact, and one of your management is constantly, that's a burning subject for them, and they haven't been able to solve it or fix it, that's probably something that's going to instill creativity automatically. And that's what you want to try to target. The innate, as humans, we want to solve problems. Or that's at least one way to target it. We want to fix things. So you can target that innate, relatable, I want to engage without having to force me to, without having to put a carrot in front of me. That's the best topic. And that's one of the harder parts. You have to find the right topic. I don't want to talk too much about this, though.
No, that's fair. So for the folks who just joined, I saw a few folks came in a little bit late. I want to make sure that you know that we are monitoring on Twitter, at Brightidea. Please engage in the conversation, #innovation, #leadership. And we also are happy to take any of your questions through social, or there is a Q&A area here. We do want to make sure to hear from you, and we will allow time at the end for about 15 minutes. And again, you're listening to The Art of Developing Powerful Challenges, Topics, Participation, and Execution. This is one of a series of challenge hangouts that we've been doing. The first one was challenge outcomes, and we'll continue to talk on some later, which will be on methodologies, processes, etc. So again, we very much welcome AXA and here, Laurent, and we have George, who is a Brightidea Innovation Consultant. So thank you, and let's go ahead and now let's talk a little about hurdles. We've heard about some of the things that have been working, but I'd be interested, Laurent, to hear from you on what are some of the hurdles that you've faced when planning challenges?
So many hurdles. Yeah, typically when you're running a program that is supposed to be company-wide, you have many hurdles, but most of them are completely avoidable, or at least you can overcome them. You have technical hurdles, such as IT security hurdles that everybody knows. Because also I have CEOs participating to a jury, CEOs of AXA companies, their agenda is pretty loaded, so you have difficulty finding the right date for the jury to take place. And also, as you realize, this kind of competition needs to be held by communication team. You need to communicate heavily so that participation is high. And sometimes communication teams have so many things to talk about that I have to really fight hard for them to really talk about starting my innovation contest. So these are some hurdles I have. I have also hurdles in terms of implementation after the contest. Whenever the contest is over and I have 4 winners, I need ideas to be implemented because they are so great. We want them to be implemented, but so we need to find a team that has the resources to implement them, and we need sometimes to prioritize those winning ideas over other projects that were scheduled. So this is a bit difficult to make. A last hurdle that is interesting would be how do I monetize my ID database? In this year, I had 815 IDs within my innovation contest, and only 4 winners. And you can easily imagine that in the 811 remaining IDs, not all IDs are lame. There are some IDs that are pretty relevant, but we're not winning IDs for multiple reasons. So I'm not sure I can share my screen, but maybe I can show you very rapidly the tool that I made. Can you all see my screen right now?
It just, yep, looks great.
So this is the tool. I'm not going to bother you with that, but this is a tool that we use, that we've made after the contest. We have broken down every ID that was provided in the starting platform into categories. Those categories that you see here at the top of the screen. And so, for example, this contest was about customer experience, and we've broken that down into customer empowerment, customization, simplification. And if I click here, I have subcategories, and you see that IDs are refined here. If I click here on reward and loyalty, for example, I will have less ID that will come. So this helps me filter IDs. I can also break down by line of business, by theme, by value for AXA. I have also a research bar here, so I can put some names like some generic terms like visualization. Or if I see that, for example, that there was an ID that talked about Shazam, I will write Shazam here and make the search, and then I have the Shazam ID. When I click on the ID, I have a description. I can, if I click here, I can go back to the Brightidea platform to see the full ID because I have just a summary here. But I can click here and have the full ID on the Brightidea platform. And if it works, it's not going to work because we are live, of course. But here we're supposed to have the ID, and the IDs are presented, are displayed with other IDs that are very close to this specific ID. So I'm gonna stop here. But as you see, did I stop sharing my screen? Yeah.
Yes.
As you see, sometimes monetization of non-winning IDs is a bit difficult. What I did to overcome that is to create a specific tool for people to easily search the IDs that have been provided. And the whole point of that is to say to people, guys, the whole organization has worked for 5 weeks intensively on this topic. There are great ideas. Please look at them, monetize them.
Yeah, I mean that what you just showed, Laurent, it's like makes me think of trend scouting or something like that. You know, taking a step back to what you were saying about the type of challenge you're referencing, very broad, very big challenge, company wide. You know, that's one very specific type, and definitely with a challenge that size, you know, you get to these, you experience some hurdles. But what I'm seeing is almost organically, you started transitioning into different use cases. You sort of, you know, you found yourself with all these different breadth of different, you know, focus structures of ideas coming in from, you know, different thought angles, and you started structuring that information in a way that is basically leaning into a different use case, which is more research-oriented use case. And this, I find it's fascinating that you organically, you know, naturally went in that direction, which is basically in line with what we've most recently started creating in terms of our apps. You have one that's research oriented, you have one that's problem oriented. The challenge you ran was sort of intrapreneurial oriented, and this adds to the notion of there's different kinds of challenges, and you run them based on what you need, right? You guys wanted to engage everyone, massive scale, and I'm a huge fan of the sort of internal startups oriented challenges. It's not easy for sure, and as I'm sure you know now, running that scale of challenge takes significant time.
But as I'm sure you say to your customers, and I do it myself, you need to really prepare the challenge before and really phrase the challenge and imagine the categories that you will have and so on. But what we saw, of course, and I think you're right when you talk about this organic evolution, some categories just can't be seen before the challenge. So you need to find a way to add them or to recategorize after the contest is over.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the hallmark notions of starting a challenge with the idea of the sponsor first. That right now you're at the situation, and within intrapreneurial structure, that is, you are going to the jury, and there's the pitch event, and at that point the idea is selected. But that scale of challenge, definitely very interesting. Take it from a different angle, and what if I were to recommend, it's something that I think you should try next, perhaps, to start of plugging in volume of challenges, is taking the sponsor first approach, where you find someone first who already knows what the issue is, and you already know where that idea is going to go whenever one or more actually ideas come out as a conclusion. Very significantly different structure, I would say faster than the size of the challenge you ran. And you're targeting different things, or you could get into research perhaps with some trend scouting, maybe some design thinking. You could plug your new. I see these new tools as toys, basically. So your new toy with some of our new tools. This is very interesting next steps for you, Laurent.
I will definitely try them.
Hey, so let's talk about unexpected successes. I mean, we've talked about hurdles, we've talked about what has worked, but what are some of the lessons learned that you would share?
The most you wanna start, George, or can?
Go ahead.
No, I can get my most striking thing about starting is that people are so keen. They are so keen. They post an ID in the platform, and after the first selection phase, we invite people that have been selected to work further on their ID, and they always love to do it. They want to defend their ID, and this is very great. This is very good because you realize that within AXA, you don't have just people that are coming here to get the. You have people that are coming here because they believe in some ideas and they want to defend them and push them. So that's great. And actually, there are some people that got a better job after starting, or a different job after starting, and a job that was acquired because they have defended an idea everywhere in the company. Starting has pushed them to do so, and so on. So people are happy about it, and people can find new position, which I clearly didn't expect when I set up the contest.
Yeah. You've tapped into that intrinsic motivation. It's
exactly.
The level of ownership that they're engaging with the organization in a way that is their own, which is not common. If you haven't started down this journey, a lot of organizations are still, in a previous step. And it takes a little bit of time to adjust, but that intrinsic motivation.
There are no real hard rewards at starting. The only rewards I provide them is coaching on lean startup, coaching on pitching, coaching on business modeling, and also an exposure to a CEO. That's the only thing I provide to those people. No prize, no money, no iPad, nothing like that. But they still participate a lot, and they're happy to do so.
Excellent. So this is a great dialogue, and I think that just to pull it together, it would be great to talk a little, Laurent, in terms of if you went back in time, you talked about your first challenge, What's the one thing that you've done ahead of planning, that you tell yourself you really wish you'd gone ahead and done? What would it be?
So the two main things that should be considered, in my view, is I talked about how to leverage the non-winning ideas. I think it's fundamental because even though you have winning ideas, some other ideas can really count for your company, and you should do everything you can to let it know. Another thing is, as I already said, on implementation. You need to get ready to help ideas being implemented, and that means potentially you freeze a budget before, or you ask your challenge sponsor to have a dedicated budget to be able to implement ideas. And also you need to look for organizational ways to implement ideas. Like, for example, if there is a digital team that has a roadmap of projects, this roadmap shouldn't be complete before starting begins, or before your innovation contest begins. You need to have some leeway in how you will use your resources, because you need to expect starting in my case, but your innovation contest, to provide some projects after your innovation contest is over. So you need to find organizational ways to have ideas implemented.
Yeah, you're placing controls in place. Ideally, that sponsor, if you can get the sponsor first, rather than thinking historically, let's think future-facing, your next challenge then, or one of the many next challenges, try to find that sponsor first, and then find what they're interested in, rather than in general. What is their hot topic? And then they would, more than be happy to implement.
For the challenge sponsor, I would say that the best challenge sponsor I can have is the one that will help me for implementation, but will also help me for participation, that will, ask his community to participate, leverage his own network within the company, and so on. And potentially also the one that will be someone that will be very keen to help me preparing the contest, phrase it correctly, and so on. Because if you have a challenge sponsor that doesn't help you in the preparation, and then you have lame ideas, then he gets back to you and say, come on, this was not carefully phrased, and so on. So, and as an innovation leader, you're responsible for that. So you need to involve him as much as you can. And he's already on board from the start. That's great.
Yeah. You need the way I like to think about it is you want someone that's obsessed. They're obsessed with whatever it is we're doing, and that's what they wake up in the morning and they go to work thinking about that. Let's
exactly.
Get to that. If you can find that person, best case scenario.
I have some of them at AXA.
George, just can you talk a little bit about C-suite buy-in? I know at Brightidea we hear a lot about that from customers and how critical it is. And how do you communicate it out to the rest of the company to make sure you're getting the right buy-in?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to your execs and that level of execs, and I think what it most ties into, beyond all of the employee base seeing, wow, our CX, whatever, CI, CO, CEO, whatever it is, that level of engagement, it sort of opens the door. And I think this ties into a little bit of the risk aversion consideration that, even employees, they're, especially in the beginning, you're a little standoffish. Is my idea any good? Maybe it's just a stupid idea and no one will like it. And just getting someone from that level organizationally, starting with the employee, to engage is really, really important. It's very powerful. I wouldn't say it's absolute. It's not critical. There are many ways around, and you can build quote-unquote grassroots. But, beyond just the employees, if you can get a C-level, it's also your sponsors. That these people in middle and, upper management, not C-level, but, the people that you're looking for to develop your challenge topics, the people that, you're looking for their problems, you want them to open up. They won't open up unless they feel a little bit safe. That, you don't want to share your worst problem if you feel like someone else is going to find out, and, what if someone, some other level of seniority finds out. So if you can get your CEO to openly state, yes, this is something we're doing, this is our future, this is what, we're opening the door will remain open, we accept that, there may be some difficulties, we have to be, transparency is of course critical. then those individuals that you need, your sponsors, they'll become a little bit more flexible. They'll start sharing core information. So I guess I would say, if you can, definitely do as high as you can go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would even go further, George, if I may. I've only run it in AXA, but I would say that my contest would have been really, really hard to implement all my key success factors. Let me share my screen again with you guys. It's going to be quick, but I think it's very important. So as you saw, this is the first one that I mentioned to make this your ID crowdsourcing contest work. CEO sponsorship to me is fundamental because it will kick off everything. It will unlock IT teams to prepare for the challenge technically. It will help convince communication teams to help you. It will also, the CEO or C-level people will help you have the right sponsors. I think it's really, really fundamental. What is also fundamental is heavy communication. You need to have your communication teams on board. That's crucial, and you need to make everything you can so that they talk on your contest as much as they can. In AXA, they have different things that they do. They send messages. They have wallpapers in our desktop that they change centrally so that everybody, when the starting starts, they saw that starting is on in their own computers. I talked also about votes that are great to make it viral. I talked also about live stats to foster competition. Obviously, you need a user-friendly web platform, but I guess if people look at this conference, they are in good hands because they are interested in Brightidea, and I can only recommend Brightidea. And also, what I provide, this is potentially not compulsory, but it's great, a training program for ideators or ID submitters. Those ID submitters will give you time. The least you can do is to train them, and when you do that, you offer them something, but you also offer yourself something, because as they will sorry, I'm stopping the sharing my screen. As they will get coached on those tools, they will provide better material for you and for your contest. So it's a really win-win thing that you offer to them.
I think a key word, in Laurent, in what you've been saying, sort of to position that placement of success factors, is the contest. Again, that type of challenge, all those elements are the notion of being able to develop your employees through the contest and the successful ideators. It is a contest, and you're submitting an idea, again, this entrepreneurial scale, where you expect that this kind of structure is necessary, and definitely the notion of being able to build out your ideas, develop further, educating further the communications, all of this is super critical. Not to say that there are challenges that, well, in the future, I hope we will maybe we can together start running. But rather than a contest, more so you need to either you don't know what you're looking for. Maybe you just need to do some research, or maybe you want to the problem solving. It's not a context. You need a solution. I think it's very interesting.
Sorry, I cut you.
No, go ahead.
Now, I just want to remind people that are watching that my initial goal was to develop the culture of innovation at AXA. Yes. I was not on year one to have the most disruptive and fundamentally different ideas. So I think we achieved that goal because we had this year 22,000 employees participating, 800 ideas. That was marvelous. And I think you're right. We need to move to the next step, which would be to have now really impactful ideas that are implemented, that change the way the organization offers its services, that solve customer pain points, and that position AXA in the #1 position in insurance.
It's fascinating to see your evolution. I think it's very interesting that you started with a very big goal, big target, and you succeeded. And I'm glad to see, and you will continue to succeed because now you're already, you're down the journey. You have only a very bright future ahead.
Thank you.
So let me just stop folks here for 1 minute and make sure everyone knows we are going to take questions. So please be sure to submit your questions. We're going to do a dialogue here for a few more minutes, and then we will turn it over to make sure we're addressing what you want to hear about too. So please do submit any questions through social at Brightidea or within the panel here in the Q&A. All right? And so let's talk for a minute here on, Laurent, how long does it take a challenge to happen from ideation through execution? And can you speak to the steps?
Okay, I guess this one is really specific to every company. I can explain my challenge, but I guess there are numerous ways to make them. In my case, what I do is I open the platform for 5 weeks. So just to answer your question, it lasts about 5 months from platform ideation to having the 4 winners. What I do is I make a first round of moderation when the platform is open, so that people can say, oh, this idea looks like this one, this idea we've already done that, and so on. Then evaluators select the 60 best ideas. Then I have a first jury that selects the 30 best ideas out of the first 60. And this jury is composed of people from AXA, from all entities or countries, as you would say. And then I have a second jury 1 month later. Between juries, obviously, teams work on their lean canvas, their video, their pitch, or whatever. And on the second jury, what I do is I bring along external people external from AXA, so that they give us their opinion, they bring a fresh eye to the contest. And sometimes people say, okay, this idea looks really disruptive for you guys, but come on, open your eyes, this has existed for 10 years. Or the other way around can happen. We find an idea just okay, but they let us know that, come on, we have never seen that before, so you should push this idea. And the third jury, there's about 1 month between all juries. The third jury is made up of ex-com members of AXA. And they select the winners. And the winners are not here right now for the closing ceremony. Before that, we do a kind of prototyping exercise. We offer that. This is part of the reward. We do a prototyping of the 4 winning ideas that are fully paid by my team. And we invite them all in Paris for 4 days. So if they're French, then that's not so much of a price. But if they are Japanese or Americans or whatever, they consider it's a great price. And after that prototyping, they pitch and showcase their idea in the closing ceremony. The whole process takes 5 months at AXA, but I guess it can be very different in other companies.
Lots to do.
I have a video. I'm not sure we have time, but I have a video of guys in the prototyping phase. It lasts 2 minutes. Do we have time?
Why don't we show the video, then we'll turn over to the Q&A. Okay?
Sorry?
I said, why don't you go ahead and show the video, and then we'll go right into Q&A to make sure we have a chance. Okay.
Let me share my screen.
Just set up what you're showing so everybody is clear what to look at. Okay?
Yes. So that's. Oh, let me put that at the beginning. That's the movie that I made.
In 2015, innovation is survival. We really need to keep innovating in our business, otherwise
about starting 2015.
The best way to do it is to find the inside disruptors.
So that was on the first phase in the ID selection with Brightidea, the 815 IDs.
Participate in events like this, you see how fast it's going.
And this was shot in the prototyping phase with the winning teams.
In 4 days, we would have probably taken 6 months to do it.
And you see how keen they are.
We really feel that nothing is impossible.
So what I do is I send also developers and designers to help the teams, because for 4 days it's pretty intense and they might not have the capabilities. So I send people to help them prototype. And they make apps, they make robots. I mean, they develop with robots. They developed on an AXA drone. And then they showcase that at the closing ceremony.
The future is here.
Great. Great. Well, let me thank you very much for sharing that. That's excellent video. I'm going to go ahead and start and jump right into the Q&A. And I really do thank our panelists very much for joining. We have quite a few questions, so we'll get to what we can over the next 10 minutes. The first question here is for Laurent. Could you outline steps that some people skip or don't value but should when planning their challenge process? And related to that is, can you comment on common pitfalls? So again, you know, what are some of the steps that get skipped that people really should value, and what are some of the pitfalls?
So I would say something that is important when you ask so much from your people, from your employee, is to recognize their commitment. So you need to have, within your incentives plan, you need to find time to send thank you emails. This is not really hard to do, but you need to think about that before, because you need to get organized. You need to thank ID submitters. You need to thank their managers, because you're asking them basically to you're asking them to leave their teams work for you instead of for them. So you need to let them know that you appreciate that, you know that you're asking some effort from them. And this thank you email, it can come from Laurent Benichou, but sometimes it's not enough. So sometimes what I do is I ask my boss, or the boss of my boss, or the boss of those two guys to send the email, so that they see within AXA that it comes from someone that is very senior, that believes in the program, and that really recognize the involvement of everybody. Another thing that should be done also is to think carefully about all the people that will contribute to your challenge. In my case, I had last year 150 people that helped me along the way. So you need to prepare for that, and you need to recruit them. I had, for the two challenges, I needed to have moderators, lots of them, because they needed to moderate all IDs. I needed to have evaluators, and lots of them, because you need IDs to be evaluated by multiple people, not only one, because you have a risk of bias. So you need to evaluate them with have them evaluated by many people. You need people in your jury, so that needs to be prepared, and you cannot do that in a rush.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to move to the next question just so that we can make sure to get to various ones. The next one, and Laurent, if you have any thoughts on this, you talked about contests, but one question came in is, what are the best rewards for attracting and engaging participants?
I'm not sure I've done it properly over the last 2 years, but I didn't talk about rewards except from the fact that they will have a C-level exposure, and that they will have a chance to prototype their own ID in Paris. I feel, but I've not demonstrated it, that hard gifts like iPads or travels or whatever, vacation, are not so great to drive effective participation, because you don't want prize hunters. You want people that provide, useful IDs. But on the soft ones, I'm not sure I need to communicate on the fact that I coach them on Lean Canvas, pitching, and video making. I've not done that because I fear that if I do that, they will be fearful of participating. At start, they participate with only one ID submitted in a platform that takes only 10 minutes. That's long enough in my view. If I talk about the fact that if they are selected, then they will do a Lean Canvas, a video, a pitch, and so on, maybe some people will be deterred from participating.
Okay, that's fair. And how do you divide up the roles of the challenge design?
What do you mean the roles?
And George, if you want to jump in here too, that's great. But essentially what it says here is, how do you divide up the roles of challenge design? Have you encountered a situation where the business owner wants to run a challenge in a way that you think may not work?
Okay.
Okay.
So the process of ID selection was top down in the last 2 years. And sometimes they are in line with the current topics of the strategy or the C-level discussions. Now, what you need to keep in mind is that when you do your contest, you will need 5 months until you have winning IDs, and you will need potentially 12 other months before those IDs are implemented. So if you take challenges that match current discussion of C-level people, then you will make them wait for 18 months, something like that, minimal, before they actually see something. So what you need to do is to look at the future topics of the company to be able to prepare the company for the future needs. And this year I tried to propose that, but I think I did it wrong. I didn't really prepare my management to defend those topics. And this year it was again a top-down decision, but next year I'll do better. I'm sure.
I absolutely agree, Laurent. In the notion, I mean, I've seen it happen a couple of times where senior leadership has something in mind right out of the gates, and you guys are the experts at the end of the day. There's a lot of learning that you yourselves have done. Anyone as within an innovation team, innovation program team, there's a lot of nuances to this, and often, someone in leadership will get set in a specific direction. It's very hard to, balance how much you can push back and how much you can express. These are the options we have on the table, and it's an educated set of options. Being able to present those options based on, you've done homework, and you need to prove that homework. You've spoken to some people, you've broken down the details, you've gotten data to support your direction. Where would there be huge impact or lesser impact? I think it's sometimes the importance of your executive level is to give the yes that we are here to do this, but not to enforce a specific direction, because there's a certain level of transparency that needs to build, and you need to be able to show that level. This is what we need to do. You're the expert.
Yeah, but to be able to be the expert, I guess you need to be careful of your organization, because I can submit topics that I'm sure are interesting for the company, but I can do that because I don't only do starting, I also do foresight, and I also do disruption market watch, innovation market watch, and it's with all this content and this background that I can really infer what would be a great challenge in the future, or for us prepare the future. If I were only on execution of contests, I wouldn't be able to challenge my management so much.
This is exactly why one technique, one tactic is to offload that requirement. It's kind of a risk that you're taking, offload it to the sponsor. The sponsor is the one who's telling you what the topic is, and you have to find the right sponsor. So you're going to gather 10 different potential sponsors. One of them is going to be the person that has the ear of the CEO, let's say, or two of them are going to have the ear of the CIO. And you find what they need, and you help them develop. You go a level down, and that is, it's basically an indirect way of getting what you need. You leverage the organization, and you leverage existing issues by people that are a seniority that can push back, let's say.
Good point. So let me go ahead and ask the one last question, and then we'll be at the top of the hour. So, Laurent, this one was for you. It says, regarding Laurent's votes versus evaluations for choosing ideas, how are evaluations done? For example, with the subject matter experts under crowd via Brightidea platform.
So what I do, of course, I do it with the Brightidea platform, with the score sheet. And I think it's very effective because on the score sheet, on the Brightidea platform, you have the description of the ID plus the question that you ask that you can set for them to be multiple choice. and people really can answer through your tool very easily. So I wouldn't recommend to use another tool, not at all.
Thank you.
Uh,
We didn't pay him to say that.
no, but I really mean it. It's really effective, and you shouldn't bother having something else. What I do is I gather people that are expert at the topic. Like, for example, if I have a topic on life insurance, I would take life insurance experts, but these people would only make 40 to 50% maximum of the evaluators, and the rest I will have people from other teams in the company, so that we find this not necessarily disruptive ideas, but ideas that are different from the ideas that are already floating within AXA. So I would take people from the digital, people that are dealing about customers, lots of them, and actually in every challenge you need to fill them with marketing guys or people that really are very close to the customers, that immensely useful. You take people from HR, procurement, and so on. If you have other teams that can contribute, that's great.
Great, thank you. Well, we're at the top of the hour. I very much want to thank both of our panelists, Laurent from AXA and George from Brightidea. Appreciate it. Excellent insights for the art of developing powerful challenges. And I encourage everyone who's listening in to go to www.brightidea.com for more free, valuable resources. And again, thank you so much to our panelists. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rachel.